Hey everybody, Clint Rawls here with Delta Valves and Controls. I wanted to do a video today going over the CVS Series 50D. This is the 50D SRH100 hydraulic scotch yoke actuator. It's fitted with the SCHA self-contained hydraulic apparatus. The gist of it is it's a spring return actuator that's manually hydraulic driven. You would stab it onto a valve in the closed position, and then for a pipeline, and then you would manually pump it open. And you pump it open, the pipeline flows, and then you may have a pressure sensing device or a solenoid with a transmitter of some sort to sense a downstream disruption that you don't like. It would trip in turn, slamming the valve closed. It's mainly just a safety device, but the main thing I'm here to talk about today is the hydraulic schematic side of it with a low bleed solenoid valve. A lot of people have a lot of questions on how to tube them up, and today I want to just go over this real quick. I've already got it pre-tubed. I just want to show you basically the arrangement. So let me grab you off the stand. All right, so what we've got here is a 12 volt DC ASCO solenoid valve. This is a low bleed model. You can see this goofy fitting arrangement because I don't keep a lot of 1/8 inch MPT fittings, so I had to adapt. Anyhow, I've got it down here with a little AC adapter. And so what you're going to see here is the porting. So you'll see you've got a signal port. You've got, so the signal port is on the left. There's a vent in the middle. And then this says low pressure. Okay. On the opposite side, this is just a through port manifold. The only difference, you got your high pressure tubing, which goes out to your actuator, which this actuator operates at 2000 PSI. This regulator here regulates it down to anywhere from 80 to 130 PSI for the controls. The controls come through this low pressure port, so 80 to 130 PSI or 135 PSI. The signal port operates, this is the manual latch, or as I like to refer to it, as a hydraulic relay. So you've got the hydraulic relay or the manual latch, and whenever you want to trip this system, what you'll do is you'll send signal. So you got low pressure coming across, going signal, which goes to the manual latch, engaging it and allowing the system to operate. When you want to trip, you would send the signal pressure, which goes to the manual latch, that red lever. Send that signal pressure to vent. It's a minuscule amount that it needs to vent. When it vents, it pulls in a piston that's behind the manual latch. And when that piston pulls in, the reason I call it a relay is it's a small diameter piston that when the pressure's relieved, it opens up a large orifice, dumping large volumes of fluid back into the reservoir. So if you wanted to trip this without this relay or manual latch, the orifice in this ASCO is so small, it might take you 30 minutes to close this valve. I could be exaggerating. It may take longer. So that's what this is for. So this solenoid is basically, I'm plumbing in this one here. Let me grab the paperwork. So the most common arrangement in the field is the normally open arrangement. So normally opened, de-energized, Okay, so in this position, they want this system to trip. Most people, most applications. In the energized scenario, this is how they want it to operate and maintain. So when in operation, you want to go port 1 to 2. So your signal port, which is pressurizing this, that's your signal, comes over here to 1, and your low pressure, which feeds it, so you're actually coming in from low pressure, passing through the solenoid, passing it straight into the signal, pressurizing that little piston. So low pressure, which comes into number 2, and then comes out of number 1, goes into the signal, and that's how you want that tube. So when it's energized, that's where it goes. When it's de-energized, signal port number 1 is connected to the vent, because you want to vent that small amount of fluid for this piston to trip that large orifice relay and dump the system properly. Okay, so I'm going to operate it right quick. Bear with me, I'm going to have to try and plug it in with one hand. Okay. All right. So the system is energized now. So I'm going to pump it. And you'll see that this trunnion here at the back is going to start turning. I'm not going to go full on, but you'll get the point. So it's stroking clockwise. Okay, so we're just going to go to there. In fact, I'm going to leave the handle up here so you can see it when it trips. So currently, the fluid is coming out of the low, which is number 2, is coming into number 2, out of number 1 to the signal. And then when we trip, we want to trip the signal out of this relay manual latch to this port, which is going to the vent. So I'm going to trip it now. These low bleed solenoids take a minute, so I just unplugged it. Bam. See the handle go down? Whole system trips. There you go. So if that had to vent, if it was tubed up improper and you tripped the system and it was venting completely through that solenoid, it would take forever. It would take a long time. You would know it right away. System would just slowly creep down, wouldn't operate properly at all. It's actually dangerous because this system is supposed to operate with a certain amount of speed. You know, it's determined based off the actuator size and everything else, but still, it doesn't need to be super slow. I mean, if it takes 20 seconds to close, that's okay. But if you run it through that solenoid, even on this little 50D, it backwards through the orifice, it's going to take a long time. Anyhow, like I said, most important part is you're coming out of the low. That's where the pressure's coming from. You're going to the signal, and then when you trip, you don't want to trip the low to the vent. You want to trip the high, or I'm sorry, the signal to the vent, which trips the pressure out of the back of this piston in this relay / manual latch, trips that, dumps it to vent, opens a larger orifice in the relay and dumps the actuator quickly. Anyhow, that's all I had for today. If you got any questions, give me a shout.